Hello. Sorry. Just checking to make sure our guest is good to go. Let me pull him up. All right. So, yeah, today we're just going to go for about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. We're going to discuss sort of trans pronouns. I've heard this sort of like before, demanding pronoun use. And I'm curious to sort of hear your perspective on it. So, we're going to do that. Let me just make sure our guest is good to go. All right, cool. He said he's good to go. I'm about to call and bring him in shortly. Let me actually bring this in. How do you? I haven't done this a bit. There we go. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Chibu.
Barely. You're kind of cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
Chibu. This is just want to make sure that's that the name you'd like to go by, Chibu.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming on. I know we tried to talk. I think it was last week about we were gonna discuss, trans rights and whatnot, but you couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for joining us today. I'll let you kick it off. I just wanted to sort of let everyone kind of give. We kind of got into a discussion in the comments of my reject modernity, toxic. What was it? Embrace masculinity video. In regard to trans rights and transgender pronouns and whatnot. And you kind of expressed a sentiment, and I've heard this a lot, and I've always sort of been curious as to sort of um, getting sort of like a perspective on it. In regard to, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you can't demand a trans person cannot demand someone use their pronouns, and I've always sort of been curious about that perspective. So the floor is yours if you kind of want to give your perspective on that, and then we can kind of use that as a jumping off point.
Well, the thing with pronouns is they're referential. They're used to refer to someone. They're not a title. Like nobody has their own pronouns. They're purely for like referencing sake to use to refer to a person, right? So for you to come up to me and be like, "Oh, these are my preferred pronouns," it's just like, first of all, grammar isn't a social construct. You can't just like change grammar. Not language. I mean actual grammar. You can't just change grammar, conjugation, like commas and shit. You can't just change that and be like, oh, this is the way it should be, or this is the way it must be. One and two, like I said, pronouns are referential. The reasons pronouns were ever created was when the Europeans were coming to America for the first time, they were actually offended that Americans didn't have in English, they didn't have a way to refer to a European person. And the Europeans were like, what the F? And that's how pronouns started. And gender was actually created by now Democrats in the 60s. That was how gender was created, or that's one of the ways gender was created. So that's basically just it about pronouns. I mean, you're referential, so I don't see how you can be changing them and saying that I should use them when you don't actually have your own pronouns, because it's not a title like Mr. or Mrs. or Doctor. It's just a word used to describe someone. So, yeah.
Well, so just because we kind of got, I don't want to get too far in the weeds. So just to back it up a bit, so you were talking, so your kind of idea is that pronouns are referential. So having preferred pronouns is something you just don't agree with.
It's not that I don't agree with it. You can do what you want, right? You can have your own pronouns. I don't The fact of the matter is, I don't care what you do, what you as an individual do with yourself, and what you think about yourself and how you view yourself. That's entirely up to you. That's your business. That's not up to me. But then you're gonna make laws, literally make laws like Title 9 and Bill C-16 in Canada that say that it's illegal to not use preferred pronouns and I have to use those pronouns, then I'm gonna have a problem. Because it's just like, how are you going to force your ideals about yourself onto me? I don't have to see you in the same way that you see yourself. So you can have your preferred pronouns and you can use them to refer to yourself, or maybe like in your friend circle or your family, or you can tell people in passing or whatever, and if they decide to use it, that's up to them, because it's their mouth, they're the ones speaking. They decide what to say and what not to say, right? In some cases, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, and this case is one of them. And then you're gonna essentially try to force me to use your preferred pronouns that you don't own in the first place. So it's not that I don't agree with it. It's just that I don't agree with the fact that you're forcing me to align with that ideology.
Okay, so so I'm a little confused. So you don't have a so let's say I don't know, you're a teacher and a student comes up
Mm-hmm.
to you. It's like, hey, they present to the world, they sort of would come off as a man or as a male. And that
Mm-hmm.
person asks you, hey, uh, I just wanted to let you know, my preferred pronouns are she and her. Um, would you respect that request?
Well, if you looked like a man, I would use he, him. And what I would do to be most accurate in my reference to you would be to go look at your file, look at the sex that's written there, M or F. There's a binary. It's either male or female. There can be, it's not either or. It's just male or female. And I would look at it, and if it said female, I would use she, her. If it said male, I would use he, him. What you have in your head, how you feel,
So,
because it's definitely
so
not
yeah, let's
logical.
not
How
hang
you
on.
feel doesn't
Yeah,
really matter in the
yeah, one
practical
sec. Let's
world.
just, I don't want to get too far off. So just to kind of roll it back. So in this case, if you were a teacher and a student came up to you and said, "Hey, um, I know I am a biological male, but I would ask you if you could, my preferential pronouns are she and her." In that case, because that person is biologically male, you would use he and him. You would not honor their request.
In most cases, yeah, I would use he, him.
Well,
But in some cases, when I'm trying to,
what's a case where you would respect their preferred pronouns?
okay, so for instance, so it's a just to let's just for this story's sake, let's say it's a biological male and they dress as a girl. They look, for the most part, they look like a girl, right? Makeup and everything. So someone comes into the class and I'm trying to draw that person's attention to this particular individual, this boy that says he's a girl, she's a girl. I would say she said. I would say look at her because she looks like a girl. So I wouldn't go out of my way to purposely quote unquote misgender them to further confuse a situation. So if someone that came in that didn't know them from before, hasn't seen them before, I would say she, her, because it looks like a girl.
Okay,
But
so but just
in
just to
speaking to the person, I would say to speaking to the person directly, to the girl or the boy, I would say he, him. I
okay,
would use he, him.
so again, let's back it up. So a person come up to you, it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I am um a biological male. I present as a male. I guess to most people they would assume so, or I'm a man or present male. But I identify as a woman, and I would like to go by she, her pronouns. You would then say to that person, no, I'm going to refer to you as he, him.
I would say that's fine that you have those pronouns, but I will be calling you he, him because that is your biological sex. You are a guy. So
Okay, so just to again to confirm, just to make it simple. So in that case, you would reject their request to use their preferred pronouns.
You're trying to make it like a yes or no. You can't make
Well,
it a yes or no in this
well, no, no.
case.
I'm in this particular case. I'm just trying to get it like a groundwork to kind of understand your perspective. In this case, so let's say I don't know if you've seen me on stream, a person who you would assume like what looks like a man, looks like a biological male. This person says to you, "Hey, I identify as a female. I would like you to use she, her," and you would say, "No, I am not going to do that. I'm going to address you as he, him."
Yes, face to face with the person, one on one, I would use he him.
Okay, so you would reject that request by them.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start there. We'll get into sort of like the difference between sex and gender and perception in a second, but so here's my question. So because this always kind of like stump me up when people say it's like, well, when people start demanding it, that is different. Well, in this scenario, this person is not demanding it. Like if this person went up to you and was like, "Hey, you cis piece of shit, I want you to use she her," like it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
like personally, I would probably still do it, but I would think that person's a dick. But in this case, it sounds like a person is not demanding anything of you. They're just simply asking you to use their preferred pronouns because it makes them feel more comfortable. So I guess in that case, it doesn't really seem like an issue of regardless of how you feel about gender, sex, biology. And again we'll get into that, but at least to me, just in this particular case, it just seems like you were simply giving this person a very basic level of respect by honoring their request to use certain pronouns with them.
Okay, first of all, it's not my job to make it's not my job to make people comfortable unless I choose to do that. I don't have to do it. I
Yeah,
choose
I
whether or
agree.
not to do it.
I agree.
That's
Well,
one.
just
Two, if you
yeah, real quick,
decide if you
real
decide
quick.
not to be
Sorry, real quick.
comfortable,
Well, hang on, Chiba, just real quick, because I still want to get too far into the weeds. So you are correct that you do not have to do it.
you don't have to do it. It's your choice.
Yeah, absolutely. However, you can understand that, like, so for example, I think we use this metaphor. I don't have to hold the door open for a person or let's say like a little lady like coming up behind me in the door. However, if I deliberately didn't and I let it slam in their face, again, you are correct. I don't have to do that. And in your case, you don't have to use their preferred pronouns. However, you can
That
sort of
is
see
this
how
is that
people.
is such a that's a shit analogy.
I
Like
really,
all
don't.
respect, that's a bad analogy.
No, I really don't think it is. But like, let's just. Like, I don't think it is because, again, regardless of what you think you should or have to do, in this case, we're just talking about someone just asking a very, at least to me, a very simple like it's not like someone's like, hey, can I borrow 10 grand? I feel like this is a
No,
very simple, very non like it's not even like an extra syllable, she, he, it's not even.
you're doing something out of out of courtesy.
Yeah, yeah,
Holding the
so
door
it's
open, that's courtesy.
so in
Now,
this
you
case,
see,
well, hang on,
what you're
Chibu,
trying to
Chibu,
do is
Chibu,
what you're trying
Chibu,
to do
Chibu,
is.
Chibu, Chibu, hang on, real quick. You're gonna go
Mm-hmm.
off real quick. So in this case, that's a good way to put it. In this case, you are correct that you don't have to do it. However, the problem there is it kind of conflicts with the whole idea of quote unquote demanding. But aside from that, in this case, if someone is asking you to, hey, would you mind using these pronouns? Why would you not extend that very simple common courtesy to that person?
See, because it's not because you're trying to get me to do something that isn't logical, right? It's not feasible. It doesn't make any sense. It's not rooted in anything except your own feelings.
Okay.
The argument you're trying to make with that door analogy is, oh yeah, if you don't do it, you're a piece of shit. No,
Well,
not really. If I can choose to do that, right? And that's me choosing to do that, and that's common. That's common courtesy, and that's fine. I can also choose not to do that, and it won't necessarily be a piece of shit thing to do. Okay, it might be,
Well, if it
but
like
then you're trying to
if it like
conflate it.
slammed in her face, like or if you made like
You're
a
trying to conf
if you made it like
and then
deliberately,
it's
yeah.
an old lady. It's just like you can't really make that analogy
All right, so let's
because
just okay.
she
Hang on, Chibo,
and
Chibo,
then
Chibo,
and then
Chibo, Chibo,
you're trying
Chibo,
to
Chibo.
conflate it with
Yeah, Chibo, one sec.
pronouns, and
Chibo, one sec.
that doesn't work.
Chibo, one sec. Let's scrap that whole thing. So let's roll it back. So in this case, this person. So this kind of again, it kind of doesn't really relate to what we were originally talking about this quote unquote demanding. In this particular
Hmm.
case, this trans person is asking you to extend a common simple courtesy to use their preferred pronouns. So in
That's
this
not common
case,
courtesy.
to just call them she instead of he.
First of all, that's not common courtesy. That's pandering to them and accommodating your feelings
Well, yeah.
for no reason. I don't have to do that.
No, no.
There's
Hang
no
on. Chibu,
need for me to do
Chibu,
that. An
Chibu,
old lady would
Chibu,
physically be
Chibu, Chibu, Chibu,
incapable of
Chibu,
opening
real
the
quick.
door
Chibu,
while I
real
could
quick.
easily just
Chibu,
do it.
Chibu,
Not the
real
same
quick.
thing.
Chibu, come on, man. Come on. Real quick. Okay, let's get away from the door analogy because it's not working. So let's go back.
I mean, shit,
So
you brought it up.
I know, but I'm saying let's leave it alone. I already said let's just leave it alone. So if we go back, like you said, I agree. We've gone over this. You do not have to. However, my question would be, what is the reasoning in that moment for not doing that common courtesy for that person to use their pronouns?
Because there is no logical backing to it. And I don't have to do it. That is my decision. You
Chibu,
want me to? That's what I don't understand. You're asking me to respect your decision to use your preferred pronouns, yet it's so difficult for you to understand and respect my decision to choose not to. Why?
Chibu. But what I'm trying, no, I understand your decision not to. What I'm trying to understand is what is the reasoning behind that. So, like in this case, what do you think the harm would be in doing so? What is the in your eyes, what is the reason that you would not do so? That's a good way to put it.
There's no harm in not doing it. The only reason I wouldn't do it is because it's illogical. It has no it has no grammatical or scientific backing. It's
Well,
just it's purely your own identity and how you view yourself. One and two, pronouns are objective. They are not subjective. You're trying to get me to do something that goes against all reason, and the reason I should do it is because, well, your feelings and you want to be comfortable. Okay.
okay,
So
so in
it's
this
not my
case,
job. It's not my job again.
okay,
Not my job.
so in this case, you would not do so, not because you don't like you, not necessarily because you don't like feel like it's that big of a request, but in this case, you would not do so because to you it is sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Not really a betrayal, but sort of a it sort of is perpetuating this sort of ideology that you do not like.
Again, it I don't mind your ideology as long as you keep it to yourself. It's just here's a good analogy. I can't go up to you and be like, oh, you must go to church. You have to go to church. Please come to church with me. Why would it be so would it make you a piece of shit if I came up to you and was like, please go to church with me, and you refused? Would that make you a bad person?
So hang on, you kind of like jumped around. So in this case, are you asking me, hey, would you like to come? Hey, I'd love if you came to church with me on Sunday, or are you saying, hey, come to church with me?
The first one, right?
You're
And
just
here's the thing: a lot of people would say no, and they'd look at me funny. They'd be like, okay. It's just like I can't force my religion on you, right?
well, no,
But somehow it
hang
should
on.
be okay for you to force your political ideals, and your view of yourself on
So
me.
hang
Keep your
on,
identities to
Chibu,
yourself, like, bruh.
Chibu, hang on, man. You got to calm down a bit. So in this case, I think that's sort of like an unfair characterization to say it's like, hey, I would love it if you came to church with me on Sunday, is sort of forcing religion down someone's throat. I don't think that's really, that doesn't really make it, that's just, you're just asking someone to come to church with you. I don't think that sort of qualifies as you are like shoving your religion down their throat.
Well,
However, in this particular case, um, I agree with you that in this particular case, that if you said, "Oh no, I can't go or I don't want to go," it doesn't make you a bad person because
exactly.
yeah,
So why would it
but the
change from pronoun to, when
so
it comes to pronouns?
so in this case, the reason would be is that you're kind of talking about something that's much larger in scope. So for example, if I asked you like, "Hey, do
Someone's
you want
view
to
of
come in?"
themselves.
If I asked you like, "Hey, do you want to come? I would love if you came to church with me on Sunday." Well, that's sort of a big thing. I mean, like it's a multi-hour sort of thing. You have to get up. You have to get up early on a Sunday. Maybe you had plans. So like, we're talking about something that's sort of like, it's not like, at least in my opinion, like if a friend came to me, it's like, hey, I'd really like for you to do this. Like if it was like a very close friend, like yeah, I'd probably take a few hours out of my Sunday to do that if it really meant something to them. But the reason I don't think this really compares is because in this particular case, like in terms of like the effort you would have to put in to sort of accommodate someone's like their feelings, as you put it in this case, it's not even like, again, like I said, like if someone who you perceive as a he says, hey, would you mind if you use she, in that case you're not even, it's not even, you don't even have to expend an extra syllable. Like this is, at least in my opinion, one of the most like easiest ways that you could like just accommodate someone's feelings, that has,
Ye-
that basically means that causes you absolutely no uh disturbance in your life. It doesn't, it's a very 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 simple thing that doesn't cause you any harm or uh discomfort, or what's the word I'm looking for. It's not a hindrance to your life at all. It's something very 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 simple. Like, do you see what I'm
The
saying?
I understand that, but the amount of time and effort that goes into what you're doing is inconsequential. For the sake of this argument, that let's say that's inconsequential,
Well, no,
right?
I
The point
well,
is,
I think it
the
is
point
though.
is, I can't force my religion on you, or I can't be like getting putting my religion all in your face, but someone else, I don't have the right to do that. Let's see, I don't have
So
the right to do that.
so
But
Chibu,
for some
again,
odd reason, someone else has the right to put their identity in my face, and I don't have the right to essentially pull away that curtain and look for myself and judge this person based on how I view. Because the fact of the matter is, you can all say, let's not judge, but we all judge. Everyone
Chibu, hang
judges.
on, Chibu, hang on.
That's how you decide whether
Chibu,
to give someone something or
Chibu.
not.
We're kind of going off real quick. Just bring it back. So we're kind of, you're kind of like taking this into a different direction. You kind of keep saying it like, well, you can't force me to do that. You can't shove it down my throat. But again, like we're just talking about in this particular case, a very common courtesy, it seems, from this one person asking you, hey, instead of he, can you say she? I don't think in this particular, again, if a person came up to you and was like, hey, you piece of fucking shit, like you have to do this. But in this case, it's a person just simply, and I want to stress, this is the vast majority, the overwhelming vast majority of trans people. They're not going up to people like, hey, you piece of shit, if you use the wrong pronoun, I'm gonna kick your ass. They're just very simply saying, hey, my preferred pronouns, if you wouldn't mind, are she and her, not he and him. Um, I mean, in some cases, it's not even like, um, they don't even like go up to the person and ask. They'll just put it like in their Twitter bio or something. Like it, in this case, it's just a very small thing that they're asking of you. And as I put it, a common courtesy, I would say, to just make them feel more comfortable. And again, but you kind of keep bringing it into this, well, you can't force me or make me do it. But no one's, in this case, no one's making you do it. We're just asking a common courtesy of this person. So what I'm trying to figure out is, again, I agree. I can't like hold you down and like put my arm against your neck or something and force you to do it. But what I'm trying to understand is why, in a case where they are simply requesting it from you, just a simple request, what is it that then results in you not wanting to?
If you ask me to do something for you, that's no longer a common courtesy.
Well,
You do understand that, right?
well, no. This is kind of like why, going back to why I said about like the severity or like the logistics of it. If I said, "Hey, can you pay me Can you lend me $10,000?" That's one thing. If I say, "Hey, can you hand me that water bottle that's next to you on the table?" Like you would agree, like these two are not the same thing.
Yeah, but that's vastly different. Asking me to hand you a water bottle is vastly different from asking me to change grammar to accommodate your
Well,
feelings and your view of yourself and essentially validate you
okay,
because you're too fragile to look within yourself and say, I view myself a certain way and I'm okay with that, regardless of how anyone else sees me.
okay, so let's roll it back a little bit because I think we got to the crux of the issue. So in this case, so for example, if I came up to you and let's say my name is Chris, and I said, "Hey, I know it says Chris on my file, but I go by uh, I don't know, uh, Rocky. I don't know. I can't think of something.
Names are
But
subjective,
well,
so you
no.
can
Well,
decide
hang
a
on.
name.
Well, no, because there is a name that like Christopher is on my registration. It's on my birth certificate. It's on my license. So if I were to come up to you and
Yeah, but
say, "Hey,
that
Chibu,
doesn't
Chibu,
matter
Chibu,
because
Chibu, Chibu, Chibu," just
names
let me,
are actually
Chibu, Chibu,
subjective.
Chibu, Chibu, come on, man, just let me finish a point, and then I'll
Bruh.
let you respond. So in this case, like again, if it's ridiculous, you'll be able to sort of show me why it's ridiculous. So in this case, I come up to you and say, "Hey, I know my name is Christopher. My legal name is Christopher. It's on my driver's license. It's on my birth certificate. It's on my college registration. However, if you wouldn't mind, my nickname is Rocky. Would you mind calling me Rocky?" In that case, I assume you would accommodate me in that case.
Because names are subjective.
Well, how are
You're
names?
allowed. You're allowed. Huh?
Well, and this, again, how are names subjective if we're talking about like on my birth certificate it says Christopher, on my license it says
And
Christopher,
someone
on
chose
the
that name.
college on the well yeah I didn't. My parents did.
That doesn't matter. Names are subjective. And even if your parents chose that name, fine, whatever. Nobody chose your gender or your pronouns. That is what they are, objectively, grammatically, scientifically, biologically, anatomically. That is what they are. Names are completely different. I don't know why everyone always tries to do that. Oh, well, what about names? Names are not the same. You people
So
are fundamentally looking at it from a very like wrong light. You think that you're subjective and that every to each your own. No,
so real quick, Chiba.
it's
It
objective.
so real quick, I'm trying to like demonstrate that in this particular case it necessarily isn't subjective because again I do have a legal name, but you as a person would be okay with foregoing it. Because I mean, you could easily just say, "Well, it's like, well, legally that's not your name, so I'm not going to call you that." But you would offer me the common courtesy of referring to me as my preferred name.
Again,
Okay,
if
but
you
so,
are asking me to do something, in most cases, almost all, it is not common courtesy.
well, again, if I asked you, "Hey, can you hand me that water bottle on the table?" and if you oblige, would that not be common courtesy?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Um. So
No, but
again, I
not
think
necessarily though.
so I know. Let's get to the root of this. So it seems like the reason in this case you would not accommodate that person requesting for you to use different pronouns is because in your eyes those pronouns are not they are not a preference. They are based on this person's either their outward appearance, how they are perceived by the world, or their biology. And thus regardless of what they feel, what pronouns they would like you to use, you can only go by what is actual factually correct in that case.
Yes,
Scientifically.
because they're objective, and that's not even my eyes. It's literal seventh grade biology. So I mean,
Okay. So there's a massive flaw in your reasoning, and I want to try to demonstrate it. So for example, let's say that you
all
are
right, hit me.
so let's say you're a teacher. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a person you perceive to be a woman walks in. Long hair, pretty face, boobs, but she's wearing a dress, nice legs. For all intents and purposes, every single person looking at this person would be a woman, or
Okay.
someone you would refer to as she, her.
Uh-huh.
About maybe the next class, you find out that this person is a trans woman. So biologically, they have XY chromosomes. So the only thing, appearance wise, everything about this person to you is perceived as a woman. This person is, or as someone you would refer to as she and her, and like almost sort of like automatically just by their appearance. Upon finding
Okay.
out that this person is biologically male, how would you then go forward in addressing this person, pronoun wise?
I would make it known to the class that person such and such is actually a Mr. Such and such is actually a trans woman, and I would use he, him pronouns because he is biologically a male.
Okay,
Again, like I said, before.
well, hang
No,
on, Chibu, real quick,
chill,
Chibu,
because you
hang
asked
on.
me,
Well, hang on, Chibu,
right?
real quick, Chibu, real quick. So I just want to get the answer, and then you can elaborate. I just want to kind of get an answer. So in that particular case, you would come into class, you would announce to the class, "Hey everyone, this person who I originally thought was a woman, a
Who we
biological
all
woman, and
originally thought was a woman.
well, not necessarily. It doesn't. You don't know how
All right.
everyone else may have been aware of it, but you in
Okay.
particular, you would make a point to single this person out and say, "Hey, I know this person looks like a woman and someone you would refer to as she or her, but because this person is biologically male, which is something that you cannot perceive with a naked eye without doing like an actual like genetic like a test, I am going to now refer to this person as he and him."
No, not necessarily. Why
Well,
do I have to single the person out?
well, you just said that you would make it known to the class.
Well, I mean, if the class already knew, then there's no reason for me to make it known, is there? But I
Well,
don't know that the class knows.
but again, why is that?
So
But what business is that of?
I wouldn't make it known to the class. Actually, no, I wouldn't make it known to the class. I just start using he, him, and if anyone asks, I'll be like, oh, it's a trans woman. I
Okay,
mean, we all thought it
so
was a woman, but it's a biological man. So
okay, so in
use he,
your
him.
eyes, so in your
And if
eyes,
I'm ever trying to describe the person, I'll use she, her because she looks like a woman. He looks like a woman. So I'll use she, her to describe the person. But in referring to the person, I would use he, him.
okay,
Very simple.
so in your eyes, it's all about biology, regardless of how a person looks. He
It's all
and
about facts.
well, no, hang on real quick, because but again, we're talking about this person's gender, which is their perception, how we see this person, how they are viewed by the world, would say this person is a woman.
Actually, gender is the societal and behavioral roles that go along with biological sex. That's what gender
Okay,
is.
yeah, so there is a relationship between gender and sex, but you recognize that there is a difference when we're talking about them. These are not one and the same. There's a
Yes.
relationship, but they are not they are not used to use interchangeably.
Yes. Not
Okay.
anymore, at least. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So this person, their gender, perception wise,
Mm-hmm.
is female
Mm-hmm.
or woman. But because of their biology, which is biologically male, that
Because
is
of the
what
facts.
that is. Yeah, no one is saying that biological male and female doesn't exist. No one's saying that. But
Actually,
in
a
that,
lot of people say that biological and biology and science don't make any sense, and
I
yeah, biology doesn't matter. It's only
well
how
I
they view themselves that matter. So
well I highly doubt.
that's actually a thing in the
Well I
LGBTQ community, apparently.
well I highly doubt that's a very widespread, because if a trans person is literally defined
Like
as a
six different people have told me that in a week. So
um
it's
I
it's
don't
out there.
I mean, maybe you hang out with like a very strange crowd, but 6 people out of 300 million I don't think is very indicative of a larger trend. But just to sort of like
Who knows?
so real quick right there is, a trans person is literally defined as someone whose biological sex and their gender do not match up. So it really wouldn't make any sense for a trans person to say that biological sex is not real. But just sort of moving off of that real quick.
Hmm.
So again, to kind of get your perspective, in your view, it's all about the biology. It's all about the sex. This person, regardless of how they appear gender wise, what they wear, what they look like, how they are perceived, because this person has XY chromosomes, they are biologically male. That is what dictates their pronoun use, and thus I will refer to them as he and him.
Yeah, is that new, or is that like bad, or it's just going off the facts? Why is that so surprising or controversial?
So here's why this is a completely ridiculous and does not make any sense whatsoever. If
Uh-huh.
if you were to go out to dinner with, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
like your girlfriend and some friends or something, and there is a person there,
Mm-hmm.
before, and you're meeting new people, let's say like your girlfriend invites her friends and they come over and they sit down. Before you address
Mm-hmm.
that person, would you ask them, hey, do you have any record or proof of your biology so I know which pronouns to address you with?
No,
Well,
because
well, hang on.
that's just the same as
Well, hang on.
saying,
Why not?
oh, please call me by these pronouns. It's just like
Well, no, hang on,
there's
real
no
quick.
there's there's no need to do that. Just call them by what you see them. I mean, if you later find out that they are trans, then you know
Well,
that
hang on.
they are trans, and you call them by the appropriate pronouns.
Well, hang on, real quick. How do you know that this person, let's say, your girlfriend invites a friend over? How do you know
Hmm.
which pronouns to use with this person if you don't know what their biological sex is?
You look at them and you know which pronouns to use.
But
You usually almost always know which pronouns to use by looking at someone.
well, but yeah, but you don't know what their biology is. I thought you said the pronoun use was dependent on their biology.
It is dependent on their biology when you know their biology.
Well, but yeah.
Usually
So why wouldn't you ask them?
when you're meeting someone for the first time, you go off what they look like.
Yeah, but I thought we just established that someone's gender expression, how they look, does not dictate someone's pronoun use. So I'm asking you, in this case, how would you possibly know
Who
which
said that?
pronouns?
Who said that?
So you just
When
did.
did I ever say that how they look doesn't determine their biology or their pronouns? When did I ever say that? I
Um,
said how they feel doesn't
wait, hang
determine
on,
their pronouns. That's
real
what I
quick,
said.
Chibu. I mean, I mean, we could defer to chat. I can go back. I didn't record this, but we can. I mean, go back. I'll have to see after. But I am very clearly. I set up a scenario where we were talking about this person who is perceived as a woman, and then you found out,
Hmm.
oh, they are biologically male. Thus, that supersedes how they look because their pronoun use is based on their biology, not their gender expression. So I'm sort of
Like I
expanding that.
said, when I am referring to them to maybe a third party, or when I am describing them to a third party, I would use she, her, because he looks like a woman. When I am referring to the person, usually one on one, or maybe even to the class I'm referring to the person, I would use he, him, because he is a man.
That person is a biological male.
Yes, he's a man.
Okay. But gender wise, so you can still
Hmm.
have a person who is a woman but is biologically male.
What?
So you can have someone who identifies as a woman but is biologically male.
No, identifying as a woman doesn't make you a woman.
Well, gender wise, it does. Identifying as a biological female does not make you a biological female. That is the entire distinction between gender and sex. Do you, just real quick, do you,
Okay, so what is a woman?
what is a woman, like gender wise?
Yeah, what is a woman?
We don't, if you identify as a woman, you're a woman. We don't really have it.
Bruh.
Well,
Oh my God. Okay, so you can't tell me what a woman is, but okay, because they said you're a woman, you're a woman. Okay, what is a woman? A woman is whoever says you're a woman.
well,
And the
yeah.
circular logic keeps going and going. You can't tell me
Well,
what a woman is, but you can tell me that that person is a woman. Why? Because they said you're a woman. How does that make any fucking sense?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this, but like that sort of is the entire point. Like that, like what's happening in our society is we're starting to realize that gender and biological sex don't really match up as like due to our current like due to our past understanding of how it was. So in today's society, the way that we sort of the only thing really that determines whether a person is a man or a woman, gender wise, is how they feel because we have plenty of men and women who don't have different clothing, have different biology. There is no so here's a good way to sort of like um what's what I'm looking for to demonstrate this. What what is your definition of a woman? Not in regard to biology, but in terms of gender. What determines if someone is a woman?
Well, gender is based off of and rooted in biology, so you cannot
Not
separate the two.
necessarily. No, hang on, Chibu. So we just went over that gender and sex are different things, but now it sounds like you're saying you consider them
I
one and the
didn't say
same.
they're the same thing. I just said you can't separate them.
So if someone is biologically male, they are a man.
Yes,
Okay, in that
literally.
case, so in that case, you are saying that gender and sex are interchangeable. If every it basically what you're saying is every biological male is a man and every man is a biological male. In that case, you are using gender and sex interchangeably.
Okay, yes,
Okay, so you believe gender and sex are the
and
same
even
thing.
even even if in like the 90s and the early 2000s they were interchangeable on almost all legal documents.
Yeah.
But I'm not
It,
saying they're the same thing.
okay.
They are gender is based off of biology, but they have their distinct differences.
Okay.
Gender is more in the societal space, while biology is, you know, rooted in is science. Biology is science.
Okay. But in your view,
Gender essentially just describes biology, brings it into the social sphere to describe someone, refer to someone. So to say that you are a man just because you say you're a man,
but
how?
going
It's just
back,
based off of how you feel. When has anything that has ever substantially lasted in human civilization ever been based off of how someone felt?
so just to go,
World War I was based off of how
so
three rulers felt, and it turned into a fucking war. World War II was
I'm
basically
hey
based off of how Hitler
Chibu,
felt, turned into a war.
Chibu, hang on.
So I don't know what you're talking about with feelings,
So real quick, just to
especially
kind
when
of
you're out there making laws about it.
Chibu,
It's just like,
Chibu,
what are
hang on,
you doing?
Hang on, real quick. I am not even gonna touch the comparison to World War One and War Two. I'm just gonna drop that. To kind of bring it
It's
back
true. It's
to
true though.
try to bring it back real quick. So the issue I have is that you're kind of accusing me of having circular logic in regard to what is the definition of a woman. Well, what's sort of frustrating is that it seems like that is what you're demonstrating by saying, well, being gender and sex are not the same thing. And it's like, oh, okay, so you can have a biological male sex with and be a gender wise a woman. And then you're saying no. Do you see how these two things don't mix? Because what you're saying is that gender and sex are not the same thing, but they can be used interchangeably and they mean
It
the same
can't be
thing.
used interchangeably, and you're not used interchangeably anymore.
Yeah. that's because of our evolving understanding of the relationship between gender and sex. There is to sort
Okay,
of
and
like,
our evolving understanding is based off of how people feel.
well, yeah, I mean that exactly. I mean,
Oh,
if
well,
you
bro.
think about, so like, just to go back to what you were saying, how would you, let's try to get let's try to get it back to the sort of like what you were talking about. How would you define a woman, aside, because we've already established that biology and gender are not interchangeable. So how would you describe a woman, not without rooting it in biology?
Gender is literally rooted in biology. I said they are the same thing. That doesn't mean that they are complete. I said they aren't the same thing. That doesn't mean they are completely separate.
No, well, hang on, real
You
quick.
understand that, right?
Yes, hang on, Chibu. We agree. There is a relationship between sex and gender. The vast majority of people who are biologically male identify as a man, and the vast majority of people who are biologically female identify as a woman. Okay? The vast majority. There is no denying that there is a very strong correlation there. What I am asking you is that in the cases where it does not match up, in the case of a transgender person, how would you,
Gender dysphoria. That's
so
what
so in
they're essentially suffering from, gender dysphoria, which used to be categorized as gender identity disorder, and there were actually medications for that. But okay.
yeah, so in this case, and so yeah, so what we realized is that that sort of stuff didn't work, and that we can't, like, we can't like take trans people and like put them in asylums until like, because that just,
No one's putting them in asylums. I
well,
mean, when you
no
get
no
depressed, you take medication to not be depressed.
well, no,
When you
being
have
trans,
mental health issues, you take medication to not have mental health issues.
well, yeah,
It was literally defined as gender identity disorder back in 2015.
yeah,
But
but the problem,
woke people started doing woke stuff, so they
but the
changed it to keep up your finances and stuff,
but the problem
so
in
they
this
don't get
case,
canceled.
but the problem in this case is that the treatment for gender dysphoria are things like hormone replacement therapy, puberty blockers,
Yeah,
and eventually
it makes
surgery.
people feel like shit,
What?
right? It makes
What?
people fucking miserable. But at the end of the
Wait,
day,
wait,
it's
hang on.
still a disorder.
Wait, hang
And then
on.
instead of like trying to get at least get some treatment for that or keep it to yourself,
Wait, no, no,
you're
hang on.
essentially trying to have that disorder on display for everyone to see. And I don't
Ch-
roll with that. Keep your
Chibu,
shit to yourself.
Chibu. So again, bring it back. The treatment for gender dysphoria would be things like puberty blockers, HRT, and maybe eventually surgery, depending on the case. What do you mean it makes people miserable? I don't understand.
Treatment for gender identity disorder. We're talking about two different things.
No, no, we're not. We're someone is someone
No. Like
identifies.
like back in the 60s, if you were gay, they literally gave you fucking shit to curb your libido and stuff, and it made you
Yeah,
fucking miserable. That's the same thing they used to give to people with gender identity disorder.
yeah, and you agree that that's not
What you're
good.
talking about is like top surgery and people who actually are trying to physically transition to from like male to female and female to male. We're talking about different things.
Yeah, so in that case,
You're talking about medication and medicine that helps people transition. I'm
yeah,
talking about medication and medicine that stops people from even thinking they're a different gender from what they actually are.
yeah, and what we
And that
discovered,
medication literally made people fucking miserable.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so in that case, that is sort of why our evolution of a person who is transgender has evolved. It's because we realized, well, it's not like something where I can just give you a pill and you'll stop feeling like a woman. That's not how that
Mm-hmm.
works. So now in our current society, luckily we have improved from like back in the 60s where we just try to put people in asylums.
Mm-hmm.
We realize that, hey, if someone identifies as a woman, regardless of their biology, that makes them a woman. I'm trying. So again, I want
Actually,
to.
no.
Well, hang on, Chidu.
We
Chidu.
realize that the no. Hold on. We realized that those medications were fucking inhumane because they were making
Yeah,
people miserable.
agreed.
That's why we stopped. Not because you're a woman if you feel like you're a woman.
Well, no, hang on.
The scientists know that that's horseshit. And if a scientist ever comes up to you and tells you that you're a man just because you feel like a man, then they're probably not a fucking scientist, and they're probably just pandering to you so they can keep getting funding
So
and not get
Cheeto, hang
canceled.
on, hang on. You're kind
That's
of
literally what everyone
Cheeto,
does.
hang on. You're kind of jumping all over the place. Let's try to keep it in the pocket.
It's just the truth.
So let's go back to sort of like my original question. What is
Hmm.
your definition of a woman that is not based on biology? Because someone's biology does not because like as you have
Gender is based on
hang
biology,
on,
so you're asking me a paradoxical question.
Cheeto. I don't want to mute you, but man, I really just want to ask you a. I'm trying to get this question out. I just need you to let me explain it. So you have said that gender and sex are not the same thing. There is a relationship, but they are not interchangeable.
You said it
So
yourself. There's a relationship.
yes, there is a relationship, but it is not a deterministic relationship. There are exceptions. Like it doesn't. It may match
Not
up in
really.
the vast majority of cases, but not every case. So in that case, you would
Hmm?
agree that you can't just say, "Hey, a woman is someone who is biologically female." You agree that statement does not make sense based on what you've said.
Uh, yes, it makes sense, but you have to elaborate. You can't just say a woman is a biological female, because that's not necessarily all a woman is.
Okay, real quick, perfect, Chibu. So right there, you just said a woman is defined not strictly by their biology. Okay, so in that case, what
It's still
what
based off of
else?
the fucking
No,
biology.
hang on,
The biology is the foundation that makes you a
Chibu,
woman.
real quick,
So you can't void the foundation and
Chibu,
try to build a
come on,
house. It'll
Chibu,
collapse.
real quick. So you just stated that biology is not the only thing that factors into this. So what are the other factors aside from biology?
Hmm. Let's see the other factors that make someone a woman other than biology. Well, probably none, actually, to be honest. None that I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Okay, so real quick,
So
just
yeah,
to
probably yeah. It's that's the thing. It's based off of biology, but
so
it is not biology, and that doesn't. And when I say it is not biology, that doesn't mean that it's not based off of biology either.
Chibu,
Gender is based off of
Chibu,
biology, and it was used for the social sphere.
Chibu,
That's what gender is.
real quick. So again, if you're literally saying that a biological female is a, if I ask you what is the definition of a woman and you say, well, it's someone who is biologically female, you
Uh
you're
huh.
basically equating these two things. You are not differentiating them. It's a, like I said, it's a circular argument. A woman is the same thing as a female. A female is the same thing as a woman.
Yes, but the words are used differently to mean different things in different places.
Okay, but in your view, they are interchangeable in the sense they basically, it's a circular. They define one another. A biological female is a woman. A woman is a biological female.
Yes,
Okay.
is that new, or I don't
No,
know.
it's just wrong. But
Of course, there are things.
for
It,
well
oh,
for here's an example. Here's a very good example.
mm-hmm.
How would an intersex person be viewed in society? Someone who is intersex. Do you know what intersex is?
Yeah, someone with literal male and female genitalia and whatnot.
Yeah, so
But those are.
biologically they are not distinctly male or female. So in that case, how would you determine if this
Mm-hmm.
person is a man or a woman?
That is. How am I to know that?
Well, hang on. You like you just kind of said, kind of going back, if you just look at them, you would be able to tell if
Mm-hmm.
they are perceived to be a man or a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in this case, an intersex person might be considered a man or a woman by society.
By society, does society consider them for them, or I don't know?
Well, how would you determine what their gender is if they are intersex?
Well, how like I don't know. Maybe man, woman, maybe both. Shit. Like, how am I supposed to know?
But I'm saying, how would society determine that? Do we just not call them a man or a woman? We just call them a thing?
Probably not.
Okay. So in this case, how
Then
would this
again, then
person
again,
be?
that would most likely be determined by the doctors at birth, the people who gave birth to them.
Well, no, we know, but what we're saying in this case is no. When the doctors look at the baby at birth, they look at their biology and say, hey, it's a boy or a girl, or a male or female. What I am saying is, in the case of an intersex person, they have both. They are not strictly
Hmm.
biologically male and not strictly biologically female. And in this case, how would that person's gender be determined as they go through life?
That usually would be determined first by the medical field, and then
So, real
they
quick,
would be recognized by the government. And but first it starts from the medical field, and from there it spreads to the population, and everyone knows about it. You know about it, I know about it. That's
no,
how we know about man and woman and male
Chibu,
and female.
Chibu, that was a completely incoherent answer. This person biologically is neither strictly male or female.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this, how would this person's gender, if you were to meet this person at, say, like a restaurant or something, here's a
Mm-hmm.
good here's a good question. Let's say that person in class who came up to you is intersex, and you find out that
Mm-hmm.
this person is intersex, that they have both male and female biology. What pronouns would you then use to address that person?
I would use whatever pronouns they looked like. If you looked like a dude, I would say he, him.
But why? Again, to kind of bring it back, I thought pronoun use was dependent on biology.
For about the third time since this call started, I said it's not it doesn't it's not just, oh, biology makes pronouns. If I see you and you look like a dude, I will use he him. If you tell me that you are trans, when I am talking directly to you, when I am referring to you, I will use he him. When a third party comes into the conversation and I am describing you to the third party, if you look like a woman, I will use she her.
So, in this particular case, because this person's biology is not determined, they are not strictly biologically male or biologically female, you would then defer to their gender to find
I
out
would
what
then defer to how they looked.
their perceived gender.
Yeah, you could call it that.
Okay. So doesn't this demonstrate
Perceived from my point of view, though.
so doesn't this demonstrate that biological sex and gender don't always match up?
Yeah, for intersex people.
Well, that is just a single example. But if you have someone who
Trans people
is
are not intersex people. Intersex
no,
people are, they literally do not fall under the binary by biology, by facts, not by feelings.
well, yeah, but again, how that person,
And
how
then
that in,
again, then
but
again, we
again,
still
how that
use the binary to refer to them.
well, not necessarily because there's also non-binary
The
pronouns
pronoun
that we could use.
binary.
Well, no, not necessarily because we still like.
They them is a bunch of horseshit that's used for plural most of the time. There are only
Well,
certain very specific times where we use they them to refer to a singular.
yeah.
So you can't use they
So
them for a
why?
single person
Yeah. So why
because
would?
that's
But why are you discounting
they don't
those
get to choose.
cases? But why are you discounting those times? Like there are times when we use say like they to speak of an individual. Why are you discounting those times? You're kind of hand waving that, aren't you?
I'm not hand waving that. That flows with grammar. You're using it grammatically correctly.
Well, you understand that like grammar. Like what I'm saying is that in this particular case, if we're trying to determine pronouns for someone who is non-binary, that we
Intersex.
No.
Let's
We're,
be
we're
very
talking.
specific.
No. We're not talking about intersex. In this case, we're talking about non-binary people. In this case,
Non-binary people, non-binary people are intersex people,
no,
and
that's not.
only
No,
intersex
no,
people.
no, no. Those are not. That is those. No, that is not what that means. That those two things are not even remotely in the same.
Okay, because non-binary then non-binaries are basically bullshit because there is only a binary unless you're intersex.
Well, no, not
Then you're
necessarily.
both.
No, not necessarily.
What do you mean not necessarily?
Here, let's back
By
it up.
fact,
Let's
by
back
biology, there is only a binary unless you are intersex. Then you are
here.
both.
So let's back it up a bit to try and like sort of like wrap this up because this has been exhausting. So, in your view, so let me try to lay it out because I think I understand what your view is. If you your pronoun usage, the pronouns you would use to identify someone is based off their biology primarily. In the absence of knowing their biology, you will defer to their gender as how they
I
are
will defer
perceived.
to how they look.
They're okay. So, but upon learning of their biology, whatever, if that changes, then you would defer to their biology.
Yeah, I would defer to
Again,
the. I will follow the facts when the facts come to light.
so again
Very simple and logical.
to our original example, that this person who comes up to you that like 100% of people almost would look at this person and assume they are a woman. You find out
Mm-hmm.
this person, like they look, their hair, face, everything about them says to you woman or female. But then you find
Mm-hmm.
out that this person is biologically male. You would then use you would completely scrub out how they are perceived, how they look, their appearance completely, how they say they feel. All of that would go out the window, and you would only go by their
No,
biology.
no. For the fourth time since this call started, if I was describing them to a third party, I would describe them as a woman because they look like one. I would
But
use she, her,
but
she, her, she, her.
but why wouldn't
But if I am talking to the person directly, I will use he, him
but
because he is
why
a man.
but why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just refer to that person as he him and tell the third party, well, yeah, they're biologically male?
Why would I go through the process of confusing everything just to, and it's not every time that I would say she, her to a third party. I would describe the person using she, her pronouns to a third party. Not all the time, but most of the time to avoid confusion. Like in passing, like for instance, let's say I'm I go to a restaurant with a trans woman, right? She looks like a woman, everything, tits and ass, whatever, and then I excuse myself from the table and I go like maybe going to like fucking where the waiters are standing around and shit, and I'm like, hey, you see that woman over there at like table 9? She wants two sodas. Could you get us two sodas? That's in passing. But let's say I was talking to like a friend or something, and I was talking, and we were in the store and in Walmart, and we saw a trans woman that let us know that she is in fact a trans woman. Or maybe he doesn't even know. He just walks up to me and he sees me talking to this girl because she looks like a woman, girl, everything, and the girl lets me know that she's a trans woman, unbeknownst to my friend. And as I'm walking to the car with my friend, I'm like, that trans woman, he was asking me to do whatever, whatever, so. That you can see the differences in when I would use she, her, as opposed to using he, him for a trans person. If I was describing a trans person to someone else in passing, I would just be like, she wants you to do this ABC, because that that limits confusion. And that's the whole point of pronouns, to limit confusion
Okay.
when referring to a person. So for
Okay.
you to
So
start changing things up based off of your feelings, that's sus. And then you're
Well,
trying to force me to do that or saying that I have to do that. And if I don't do it, that inherently makes me a bad person. That's just fucking retarded.
so real quick, here's a good again to kind of bring it back a bit. So,
I didn't accommodate all your feelings, therefore I'm bad. It's just like, no, I'm not, nigga.
well, again, I think if someone asks you a very common courtesy and you sort of like say
Not a common
no,
courtesy if you're asking.
but again, the whole water bottle example. But let's just put that aside for now.
Doesn't really work.
Here's a good final here's a good sort of thing to go off of. So, in your opinion, when we're talking, so aside from third party, when it's you will refer to someone by their pronouns based on their biological sex. In the absence of that, you will go off what they look like, their gender expression. Do I have that correctly?
Not their okay, yes, that's your gender expression, yeah. How
Okay.
they express themselves outwardly, how they look.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my
Because
quest. So
humans are
here's
visual beings.
yeah. So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of people in your life, what percentage of them are you aware of their biological sex?
Literally all of them.
So for all of those people, you have seen a doctor's report stating what chromosomes those people have.
I have seen a birth certificate or a passport. Fucking sometimes I've been unfortunate enough to see their nuts or or your vagina. Okay, fortunate to see the vagina, but unfortunate to see your nuts. So yeah, I know that I know their biological sex because that usually constitutes just the people I know constitute fucking family, classmates, fucking girlfriend. That's it.
So of all those people, you have seen some confirmation of their biological sex either by you see their actual biological genitals, which actually doesn't
Unfortunately,
actually
unfortunately.
which doesn't actually mean that they are that their genitals doesn't always match up with their biology because as we said there are
And
intersex
usually you see
people.
bone structure and you just immediately know from bone
Well,
structure and bone density. So
no,
at least from bone structure.
you can't. Well, no, because there are plenty of women who have bone structure that is more typically found in men, and vice versa. So I can't just look at someone's bone structure and say, oh, well, this person is biologically male, biologically female.
Most of the time you can. Almost all of the time.
But that isn't
Coupled
really.
with your
But that
genitalia
doesn't.
and your facial structure, like, come on, dude.
But again, that doesn't
Come on.
really. But again, just because that there is a correlation there, that's like
The
saying
number
that's
of people,
like
the number of people that are gonna that I won't know their biological sex after seeing their genitalia coupled with bone structure and facial structure, the number of people that I wouldn't know their gender, that anyone wouldn't know their actual biological sex is very, 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 very small.
yeah, but
Like
doesn't
we're
the
talking
fact
maybe 0.1% of the US population. Like, come on, dude.
yeah, but that's but
And
that
then trans
but
people on the
that's
whole are like 0.6% of the US
but
population. It's
but
just
that's
like,
sort of
bruh.
but that's sort of completely beside the point because if you're like again we agree that there is a relationship there is a correlation, but if you agree that there are exceptions to that, then that means like okay
The exception doesn't make the rule.
then well no but
Never has, never
but
will.
the exception does make it not black and white, correct?
Yeah, almost
Okay.
nothing is black and white, which is what you've been trying to do this entire call is trying to make when I say something, you either take it as oh completely positive, completely negative, and everything has just been trying to be black and white. Now you're telling me that it's not black and white. Yeah, no shit, nigga. It's not black and white.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to. But this is the whole thing: is that in my view, I don't think it's black and white at all. The relationship between gender and sex is, as time goes on, it's actually our understanding of how they coincide is actually getting more complicated and more vague. We used to think that they were just interchangeable. They were basically this.
People are
Hey,
making
hey
it more
Chibu, hey
complicated
Chibu,
and
hey
vague
Chibu,
based
hey
off of their
Chibu, hey
feelings.
Chibu, Chibu,
Just saying.
Chibu. Man, you gotta let me finish a point. Is that cool? Can we do that?
Ah, my bad, my bad.
Yeah, just chill. It's cool. So as time goes on, our understanding of how gender and sex are related is becoming more complicated. We're starting to realize that, like,
Mm,
hey, in the past, the way that we use gender and sex just sort of interchangeably, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And now we're having a deeper understanding of what does it mean to be a man or a woman, because
mm-hmm.
as we have demonstrated, it isn't we can't just go off of biology. It's a bit more complicated than that, and that's what we're trying to sort of understand. So to kind of bring it back to my question, the point I was trying to illustrate was that in the vast majority of times that you meet a new person or you speak to them, what what determines whether or not you use he and him pronouns or she or her pronouns? Again, it's not like when you meet a new person, it's like, hey, can you drop your pants, or can I see a birth certificate, or can I see, like, your chromosome report from the doctor? That obviously you can't live your life like that. I don't go up to people and, like, well, I don't know which pronoun to call you, so I need biological confirmation before I know which one. We base that
Uh-huh.
almost primarily based off of one's outward appearance, their
Yes,
gender
how they look.
expression. Okay, so in that
How they
case,
yes.
in the vast majority of cases, the overwhelmingly vast majority of cases, what pronouns one uses is based on their gender expression. Correct?
Usually, but gender expression doesn't always align up with how you look.
Yeah, but well,
Because
no, hang on.
because
Well,
because like for instance, some men might express themselves as women, but at the end of the day, I see you with a beard, I see your jawline, I see your pecs, like nigga, I know you're a guy. Like
wait, but how do you know? Wait, what? But wait, hang on. 1 second. So how do you know that person? It's not the opposite. How do you know they're not a biological female trying to portray themselves as a man by having a beard or pecs?
a biological female with a beard.
Yes.
How does how does that work?
Are you not familiar with hormone replacement therapy and the effects it can have on someone's body?
Even if I'd still be able to, usually you'd still be able to tell.
Usually,
Most of the time, you'd be able to tell.
usually is an interesting word there. Usually, are you sure about that?
Usually, you're able to tell if a man is a man and a woman is a woman just by looking at them.
So
Most
what?
of the time,
So
almost
what?
all of the time.
So what you're saying is that usually someone's biological sex and their gender matches up.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes.
Okay, I agree. That is correct. There is a correlation there. However, again, because we have demonstrated that there are exceptions to that, when we are discussing, when we address people with certain pronouns, that is not based off their biology. If it were, then when I go up to someone, I would have to confirm with them what their biology is before I can use pronouns, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to use the correct ones. So in this case, in the vast, vast, vast majority, I would almost say close to 99.99999% of interactions between humans are the whether or not we use he or her, he, him, she, her pronouns is based off their gender expression, how they are perceived by the society.
How they It's not how they're perceived by society, it's how they're perceived by the individual. One. Two, you're doing it again with this black and white stuff.
No, it's it, no,
Because
no.
I said that chill. Because I said that I would I would refer to them with certain pronouns based off of how they look. That suddenly nullifies the argument that you should refer to someone with pronouns based off of their biological sex. No, it
Well,
does not.
well,
You
yeah.
do not ignore the facts just because of your preconceived assumptions of what the fact was. When
Well,
you learn the facts, you abide by the facts.
well, again, but it kind of this kind of the. I mean, actually consider the utility of what you're saying. If you know someone for like 10 years and you've always referred to them as she, her because that's how you perceive them, and then you find out that that person is biologically male, you would then, from then on there, out of principle, I suppose, stop referring to them as she and her, despite the fact that they still you still perceive them as a woman. You would then use he, him.
if they that see that's this is where it now comes into what isn't actually common courtesy but more of respect, quote unquote.
Yeah.
If throughout these 10 years the person has earned my respect, because nobody is fucking entitled to respect, no one deserves that shit, you earn it. Respect is earned. I don't care who you are, what you've done, you earn respect. Well, it matters what you've done in this sense,
Okay.
but
So
you earn respect. So throughout the 10 years, if that person has earned my respect and they ask me to use she her, then again it is still up to me to decide to respect that wish and use she her. Or I could, rather than be willfully blind to the truth, to basically pander to the person's feelings, I could still follow the truth,
so you
be
would so you're
and
against
maybe probably forego that relationship.
so in this
But that
case
but then again, foregoing the relationship would be up to them because I'm just following the truth and the facts.
so in this case you would the only instance where you would forgo, as you put it, facts and the truth. So if you respected this person, then
If I chose to.
then you would forgo that, and you would use their preferred pronouns.
It's not respecting them, it's respecting their wish for
Yeah.
me to use their preferred pronouns.
Okay.
That's not
Yeah.
respecting them as a person.
You
Respecting
respect.
them is not going up to it is not going up to them and bitch slapping them in the face and spitting on them and doing all this fuck shit. Not
Well,
doing that is respecting them. But then you ask me to do something and I just choose to respect that wish and forego the truth and the facts and essentially pander to your fragile existence.
even if this was a person that you've known for a decade, you would still see that person as weak and fragile.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna bitch and whine that I didn't go along with your ideology and use your quote unquote preferred pronouns, if you're literally gonna bitch and whine about that and pout and either like
Well,
and decide to end the friendship, then I
well,
mean,
well.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
you're bitching and whining about it.
can you not see how that's reasonable though? Like, if I'm friend with someone for like 10 years, and then I ask them, it's like, hey, we've been friends for so long. I'm I want to use these pronouns. I feel more comfortable with them, and that person refuses to do so. Refuses to do that very simple. Like again, I feel like a very simple extension of courtesy. Why would I then want to be friends with that person? Wouldn't it only make sense that person would alienate if this person's been my friend for 10 years and they can't even extend to me that very very small courtesy to use my you know the pronoun that I personally makes me feel more comfortable, would you not expect that would be something
Again,
that a friend would be able to do?
again, if you're asking me to do something, then it is no longer a common courtesy. One, two, it's you that decided to not be friends with the person anymore, right? All the person did was tell you the truth of the matter, which is you cannot decide your pronouns for yourself because pronouns are objective. It's just like if you were fat, if you were like 5'6", 300 fucking pounds, right, eating stuff in your face every day, I could come up to you and be like, "Yeah, go, bro. Like you got it. You're gonna be healthy for life." That's a fucking lie, right? We could be friends for 20 years. That's still a fucking lie. But I could come up to you and be like, "Bro, you're fat. You need to lose weight or you will die. You need to go to the gym. You need to stop eating." If you decided to end a relationship on the grounds that I made you uncomfortable with your body, that's up to you. Like, how is that my fault? I just told you the facts of the matter. How did I do anything wrong?
So
I mean,
again,
I did. Like, again, the only way you would be justified is if I came up to you and said, "Oh, you fat fucking piece of shit! You're always stuffing your fucking face. You never do anything in the house. You're lazy and dumb as fuck." I didn't come at you with that energy. Just the same thing with the pronouns. I never came at you saying, "Oh, you fragile piece of fucking shit. You need me to always pander to you and validate you. You're so
Chibu,
fucking fragile. You're a snowflake."
Chibu,
All I did was just say,
Chibu, real quick,
you cannot choose pronouns. The
Chibu,
pronouns are more or less set in stone. That's all I
Chibu,
said.
Chibu, real quick. So, but again, we're talking about different things though. So if someone is fat, that is based on their appearance. That is like their outward expression. Like I can look at someone and tell if they're fat or not. Because that's just
Uh-huh.
it's a physical attribute. In this
Okay.
case, if but now you were saying to go kind of go back to our original point, if a person's physical attributes to you determine woman, but their biology, so which may or may not have anything to do with their physical attributes. There are plenty of people who are biologically male who, perception-wise, you looking at them, there is 100% of people would assume that they are a biological woman, but they aren't. They're a biological
Mm-hmm.
male. In that case, you would still defer to the biology, even though there are no physical attributes demonstrating that, as to what pronouns you would use to identify them.
If I was talking face to face with them,
Face to face,
yes, I
yes.
would. I would use their actual pronouns.
Okay, so do you see how that
But
is
if I
not?
was referring to them to
No, I know, I
avoid,
know, I know,
if I was
Chibu, I
referring
know,
to
I
them
know,
to
Chibu, 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 Chibu,
exactly.
Chibu, Chibu,
Okay.
Chibu. I know, we know.
Just
But
clearing
so
it up.
I know you've said it like 10 times though. So in this case, do you see how these are not the same thing? Because if I say, hey, this person isn't fat, and then I look at them and they're like 700 pounds, like, well, that's a lie. But if you say, hey, this person is a man, and I look at them and everything about them, they look like a woman.
You're drawing the wrong conclusion from that analogy.
Well, no,
The
you made
analogy
this.
was I told you the fact of the matter and you got mad and decided to end the friendship, and that's on you. I amicably and in the most fucking courteous way possible. I told you the facts of the matter and you got mad and you ended the friendship.
Well, no,
That's the conclusion that I'm trying to draw from that analogy,
well, no,
not
that's a
about appearance and whatnot.
well, no, and I demonstrated why that analogy is not very good. But even if we go back to that one situation again, you're you're sort of confused. I'm trying to like I don't know if this is just because it may not be the right person to sort of demonstrate this. Your sort of like ideology. You seem to differentiate gender and sex, but then when sort of I demonstrate that, like, hey, how these things don't match up, and so if one's pronouns are not dependent on their biology, and then you say yes they are, and you just kind of keep going back and forth. I'm having a very difficult time sort of getting a coherent worldview
How
from you
is
because
it
it sort of
difficult?
seems well again because it's
Gender, I said gender is based off of biological sex. The
so
only reason we the only reason we have gender is because of speaking, like how we're speaking. I would refer to you as he rather than fucking I don't fucking know, black and white avatar with eyes on Discord. I would just use he. That's why we have gender. I would
yeah
say he's a man rather than he is a biological male with
yeah
XY chromosomes and a dick and balls.
yeah
That's
so
why we have gender.
what I am saying is that when we're using pronouns, we are specifically using those terms to communicate with each other because
Yes.
someone's biology isn't necessarily communicated through their appearance. In some cases it is, in some cases it isn't. We do
Okay.
not This is why we say that pronouns are not based on someone's biology. They are based on someone's gender expression, their appearance. Now, their biology and appearance, male, female, man, woman, might match up or they might not. The point I am trying to
Okay.
demonstrate is that when we select or use pronouns to sort of, as you put it, sort of, reduce confusion, we are not
Mm-hmm.
deferring to someone's biology, we are deferring to their gender expression. Because
We're
again,
referring to how they look.
because again, to your original point, if I
Uh-huh.
if a person is walking around and to everyone they look like a woman, like a
Mm-hmm.
biological female, a woman. Well, they're different things, but if this person is perceived by everyone to be a woman, and you go around calling them he and him because they're biologically male, wouldn't that result in a lot of confusion?
That's what I said. I
Yeah,
wouldn't call
exactly.
I,
So
I
in this
wouldn't
case,
I wouldn't call them pronouns right to fucking confuse. I would call them, if they look like a woman, to a passing third party, I would be like, she said this, she said that. Right? I don't you're trying I don't know, what are you trying to conflate here? You're trying
so
to
what I'm
conflate
so what I'm trying to
pronouns
here,
and
Chidu,
how they're
Chidu,
not based
Chibu,
on biology.
Chibu. I'll explain it to you for your question. What I am trying to communicate is that the
Mm-hmm.
entire concept of pronouns is in relation to someone's gender expression, in regard to, in most cases, how they look. Again, if I look at someone, I am going to assume their pronouns based on how they look, not their biology. Their biology may match up with how I think they look, like a biological male and a man, biological female and a woman. It might, or it might not, because it is not a
Okay.
tit for tat thing. Because it is not always A to B, B to A. The
Mm-hmm.
entire concept of biology in that doesn't really factor in. If I look at someone, I can't tell their biology. When I look at someone, I can only see their outward appearance. And that, in the
Okay.
moment, will determine what pronouns I think to use.
Yes.
So, in that case, this destroys your entire sort of worldview by saying,
No, it
well,
does
if
not
I
at
find,
all.
by saying, hey, if I find out this person's biology, I am then going to switch which pronouns I use, which doesn't make any sense because, again, pronouns are used to
Why wouldn't
determine,
it?
well, because we're going off of their gender
Listen,
expression.
just okay, I get that. But at the end, what I'm saying is that looking at them and using pronouns based off of how they look, those are not their preferred pronouns. You do understand that, right? My entire argument was that you do not get to choose pronouns.
Well, no,
Pronouns
the
are
point.
assigned to you based off of how you look, and when it comes to to light, your biological sex.
So what I am trying to demonstrate is that because pronouns are determined by gender expression, or at least in like sort of like layman's terms when we like see people, that sort of demonstrates that there is no biological root to sort of like, we don't look at someone's biology and then determine their pronouns. We look at their gender expression. As time goes on,
We no, we look at your gender,
as we now realize that
which is based off
gender,
of your biology.
Chibu, man, come on, man. I don't want to keep doing this. Hang on, man. Just let me finish my point. In this case, when we look at someone, whether their gender or gender expression, as time goes on, we are starting to see that gender expression doesn't always match up to biological sex. So, for example, a person might be a man or a woman, but what if their here's a good point. What if there is someone who you look at and they are androgynous? You cannot tell based on their appearance whether they are a man or a woman, or in terms of gender, you can't tell. How would you then address that person?
That is quite literal. One, that is basically impossible. And
Wait,
two,
hang on,
that is
hang on.
that is that is anatomically okay, go ahead.
Chibu, real quick. You look at someone and you cannot tell
Mm-hmm.
based on their appearance whether they, gender wise, are a man or woman. Let's say it's a person who's 6 feet tall, doesn't seem to have breasts, but might, doesn't seem to have a big butt, but might. Their facial features, you can't really tell. They have sort of like soft skin, but there are plenty of both men and women who have soft skin. So this person, they don't really seem to fall into either category, or either sort of like either binary. This person is androgynous in the sense where you can't really think, if you were to look at this person and you were to think, hey, is that a he or a she? You couldn't. You kind of hesitated because you couldn't really tell. How would you go about determining that?
Well, for the sake of the argument, let's assume that I can look at a person and I guess because I'm fucking blind, I don't I don't, and I can listen to their voice too, and I don't still don't know what gender they are. Let's just assume that that's possible for this argument. I would I would literally just pick a pronoun that I think would based on your appearance and your voice most 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 accurately describe them. So
Okay. And
if I
so,
think they look like a guy, I'd say he. If I think they look like a girl, I'd say she. There.
okay, so in that case,
And then of course,
but
and if
then,
they come and if they come and we with the preferred pronouns, I would probably ask them, well, what's your biological sex? And if they refuse to tell me, well, I'll just keep using the pronouns I used first, because preferred pronouns is a load of horseshit. And just the same way I don't like people forcing their ideals on me, I don't want to force my, oh well, what's your biological sex on another person. So if they refuse to tell me after I asked them the first time, I'd just be like, you look like a dude or you look like a woman. I'm gonna call you a woman. Done.
okay, so
Or I'm gonna call you a dude.
that kind of doesn't really answer my question, because the entire, like, sort of hypothetical was someone who you doesn't look really like either.
I mean, they have to be one or the other.
Well, yeah,
Literally.
but you can't determine that based off of their appearance. So what would you do in
If
that
we're
case?
being if we're being practical,
No,
right? Because the
Chibu,
argument is,
Chibu, real
you can't
quick.
make
I
an
don't,
argument that's complete
Chibu,
horseshit to try and
Chibu,
trap me into saying something or
Chibu,
not saying something.
Chibu. I'm not, again, I don't want to mute you, man. In
Bruh.
this person, you can't seem to determine whether they look, whether you would refer to them as he or she. So in this case, what would you do? And so just to
That
answer your
setup is
question,
already flawed.
well, no, it's not, because there are plenty of people whose either biology or gender isn't necessarily determined based on their physical characteristics. Especially as time goes on, there are plenty of people who, I like, if you ask me, hey, would you think this person is, you would refer to them as he or she, and I'm like, I'm not sure.
Well, if I was referring to someone with he or she, I'd most probably have spoken to the person already.
Okay, well,
And
wait,
if I
so
hadn't, I would look at the person and use the pronouns that most accurately define them.
okay, but if you went up to that person and then
Because
said,
you can say I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, you're leaning somewhere. You're leaning to one or the other gender.
well, no, not necessarily. That's not, and even if you are, that doesn't necessarily mean that matches up with your biology.
Well, then that's up to them to either correct it or say preferred pronouns, which
Yeah. Okay,
preferred pronouns is
perfect.
a bunch of horseshit. So you'd have to still you don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything, but it would still be more accurate to use she, her, or he, him, depending on how they
So
looked.
we have to wrap up soon. But here's a so this is sort of what we'll finish up with this, because this is sort of what I little bit um
Mm-hmm.
little bit confusing. So if a person came up that like, let's say you're talking with that person who's androgynous, and
Mm-hmm.
they said, and you said, you assumed based on their appearance, even if it was like 60-40 or whatever, it's like, oh hey, this is a her, and the person corrects you by saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's actually he. Wouldn't it make a lot more sense just to just save everyone, like even your own personal, even own personally? Wouldn't it just make more sense to just go off of what that person prefers to be called, instead of
Well, if you said, oh, it's actually he, then it's not preferred pronouns.
Chibu, please, man, come on.
Just
Are we
saying.
good? Let me just finish the thing. Come on, man. This is getting very frustrating. In this case, if this person has said, hey, I go by he, or I go by they or she, wouldn't it just make a lot more sense and save everyone a lot of trouble? Just from a completely basic utility standpoint, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to just refer to them as that, as opposed to interrogate them about their biology?
Um, no, it wouldn't make a lot more sense because you're going against what is factually true, and that is inherently nonsensical.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that
You,
when this person, you don't know if what their biology is. So you would actually ask that person, "Hey, what is your
if
biology?"
you say if you tell me that you prefer to be called he, then I will say, but what are your actual pronouns? If
So
you
you
say
would,
that,
which is
oh no,
asking,
it's he, but if they say, oh no, it's actually a he, then I'd be like, oh okay, he, because you said it's a he. You didn't say you prefer to be called he, because that's bullshit. You don't get to prefer your
yeah, but
pronouns. You don't get to prefer something that's completely objective.
well, no, but that kind of doesn't really make sense because a lot of trans people just these are my pronouns. They don't say these are my preferred pronouns. They are my pronouns. But just to sort of roll back, so what you're saying is you literally would it not you would
That's
demand
still
that
saying I prefer though.
you basically would demand that person prove their biology so you can
I
base
wouldn't
off.
demand. I wouldn't demand anything. Once again,
So if they
I would just
said
say,
so if they
and
said my
also
pronouns so
if you
if they
say
said Chibu, so if they said my pronouns are he him and you said it's like, well, does that match up with your biology? And they said, well, I don't want to, I'm not, that's my private business. My pronouns are he him. Why?
then I wouldn't demand any further, and I would most likely keep using the pronouns that I was using before, because they're most likely
based
the right ones. If you have to correct me and say, oh no, these are my pronouns, because
based
if you
off
say
of
these are
their
my pronouns, then it's still
based
saying
off of their
these are
outward
my
gender
preferred
expression,
pronouns.
based off of their gender
So,
expression, not their biology.
based off of how they look, because saying gender expression is coining it in a way that could be false to giving the situation, or at
Based
least
off
giving
of
this argument.
based off of how
Based
they
off of how
look,
they look.
based off of how they look, which is not always dependent on one's biology.
I mean, if they've tried hard enough to change it, to change your appearance, then sure, yeah.
Okay. So this was a very long talk, but what we came to the conclusion is that one's pronouns are based off someone's gender expression or how they look, not necessarily their biology.
It's no.
Because as time goes on, the lines are becoming more blurred as to how we can sort of visually identify someone's gender or gender expression, and thus it doesn't really seem like a huge deal. And again, I
Mm,
really have to stress this because you kind of try to make it sort of like a a a differentiation, but like yes, I would say that just if someone says it's like, hey, I I prefer to be called like he or she or they or them, that is a very small instance of common courtesy. Yeah.
Again, just because I refer to someone based off of how they look does not nullify the fact that the most accurate way to refer to them would be based off of their biology, which is what pronouns and gender are based off of. Biology.
Okay. Uh,
Just because I use pronouns based off of how they look doesn't mean that pronouns aren't based off of gender, which is based off of biology, and by
Chib-
that logic, pronouns are based off of your biology. Just because
Chibu,
I don't follow that strictly 100% of the time doesn't mean that it's not true.
Chibu, I think we're gonna call it. I don't really think you know what you're talking about. It seems like based off
Right. Okay.
reactions in the chat, it seems like you just kind of keep going in circles. You contradict yourself over and over. You'll say
You
one
keep
thing.
asking me
You'll
questions in
say,
circles. You keep revisiting the same points.
well,
And I'm
yeah,
answering you with the exact same questions
because you give me
from different angles,
bec-
which arrive to the exact same answer.
because
And
you
you keep
give
going in
me
circles and circles
no
with
because you give
circular
me
motion and circular questioning,
no because you give me different answers.
and I'm
Like so,
giving you the same answers.
no, like for example, when I asked you, hey, if being a woman isn't strictly defined by their biology, what determines if someone's a woman? And then you just said their biology. You just kind of kept going, and like again, if gender and sex are not interchangeable, how would you define someone as a woman absent from sex? And I asked you that, and you couldn't answer it.
You can't do that. You can't do it absent of sex. The only reason gender is here is so that I can call you a woman instead of calling you a biological female when I'm
Yeah.
talking to you.
Okay. So in that
That's the only
case,
reason gender is here.
yeah. So in
A
that
woman
case,
is a biological female. That is what a woman is.
okay. Wait. So hang on. So yeah. So in that case, gender and sex are interchangeable. They define each other, if you will. A biological female is a
in
woman. A
most
woman is
cases,
a biological female.
it's in most cases yes.
Okay, but do you
For
understand how
instance,
when
on legal documents,
do you
it's
understand
interchangeable.
that when someone says, "Hey, A equals B and B equals A," in most cases, that doesn't make any sense. Do you understand that? A equals B and B.
You can't use math for something that's basically become a social structure at this point.
No, that's what I'm telling you. What I'm trying to sort of like get across to you is that when you say that being a biological female means you're a woman and being a woman means you're a biological female, basically what you are saying, and this kind of goes back to the whole like black and white thinking, A equals B and B equals A, which from a black and white
A woman,
mathematical
a
Chibu, real quick, bro.
bruh.
So in that case, from a mathematical black and white standpoint, that I guess that makes sense. But then you add the caveat, but not in all cases. Okay, so in that case,
Because
it
gender
isn't
isn't
Chibu,
math.
Chibu. Come on, man.
The fuck? What are you on, dude?
Chibu. Well, no, this is the entire point. You are saying that gender is not math. So in that case, gender and sex are not interchangeable. They are not. They do not define one another. So I'll ask you again. Because sex is not the determining factor as to what determines a woman, what else determines if someone is a woman or not?
Just sex, but that doesn't mean because
Okay.
a
Yep.
woman or a man, that is not
Yep.
all of
Chibu.
gender. Gender also includes pronouns. It also includes the behavior that goes along with biological sex, usually as a result of estrogen or testosterone in the body. Again, going back to its root foundation of biology. So when you want to say a woman is a biological female, that doesn't mean gender equals biology
Do you
because
here
gender
final
encompasses many more things
Chibu
apart from just woman, the labels woman and man, because that is
Chibu
what they are. They are labels to define biology.
Chibu final question. Is there such thing as an intersex woman?
Probably, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe.
how can there be an intersex woman? If woman is used to denote someone who is biologically female, how can you be intersex and a woman?
You can't.
Okay, but I just asked you if it was possible, and you said maybe.
I didn't say maybe. I said probably. I don't know, and that doesn't literally mean that it is not
Well,
possible. You cannot be an intersex woman
but
because are
if
you intersex and female at the same time? It's just like
well, no, hang on,
what?
hang on. So just to go back, I'm very simple question, and then we'll end it with this:
Mm-hmm.
Can you be an intersex woman?
No.
Okay, because you believe that being a woman means you are
I don't
biologically
believe it is
female.
the facts.
That a
It's the facts.
woman
It's not my belief.
that woman means biologically female.
A woman is a biological female. Yes.
And that is the only thing that determines whether someone is a woman.
Yes. Quite literally, yes.
Okay. I mean, that's just like basic like turf rhetoric, that like biological determinist rhetoric, that like if that was really it, like if you had just like come onto the stream and said that, we could have ended the conversation right away. But then you kind of like
It's
extrapolate it
literal
and
logic. I don't know what you're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
So
Like you asked me a bunch of
yeah,
questions and I answered
just to just
based
to
I
just
answered
to
all coming back to the point that a woman is a biological female and a male is a biological male.
yes.
You
So
can't no matter
so in
how
that
no
case,
matter how you want to monkey branch and do like
so Chibu,
logical
Chibu,
fucking
Chibu, Chibu, real quick, Chibu,
aerobics.
real quick.
You can't change the facts.
Chibu, real quick. So so we can finish this up and we can call it a night. In your view, biological female and woman, they are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. A biological female is a woman is a biological female. So in your case,
Yes.
there is no such thing as trans people.
Oh, you cut out.
So, in your view, there is no
Okay.
such thing as a trans person who is, say, a woman who is biologically male. In your view, that trans person is a man who believes they're a woman.
That's literally what a trans person is. A
Well,
trans woman is a man that thinks, that claims to be a woman, that feels that he is a woman, but you're not actually a woman. You say that you are, it doesn't make you one. You believe that you are inwardly, and that's your belief. You can believe whatever you want. There are people who
because
believe the earth is flat. That's on them. I
because
can
you
tell you the facts, and you can either go and learn it for yourself, or you can get mad at me and call me a Nazi or whatever, transphobic, and demonize
because
me so that you won't have a conversation and listen to the facts. That's what
because
that's
in
You can do whatever
your
you want.
because you believe that gender and sex are interchangeable, that they define one another. A equals B, B equals A.
They don't define, gender doesn't necessarily define by,
Okay,
actually it does.
Chibu,
Sorry,
Chibu,
biology doesn't
yeah, yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
define gender,
Okay,
and I
Chibu,
don't believe it.
Chibu,
It's the facts.
Chibu. We gotta call it.
So
You're not making any sense. Thank you for coming
I
on.
am. You're just
Um,
kind of not listening, but okay.
yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us your perspective. Yeah, maybe another time.
Cool.
Take care. You got kicked, Elijah. Shoot me an email at macabrestorytelling@gmail. Just shoot me an email and I'll take care of it for you. Wow, that was interesting. I was very confused. It started off kind of okay. We tried to do some basic metaphors and hypotheticals, but it kind of spiraled. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm sorry if that was very frustrating. John the Obscure, I agree. My apologies. I did interrupt him, especially at the beginning a lot. Um, um, Thank you for. Sorry about that, John. I know that I did kind of interrupt him, but he was going off on these tangents, and I was trying to rope him back in to kind of. I really kind of wanted to understand his perspective. I think I did pretty good. I think towards the end there, I kind of lost my. He just kind of kept going, and I was like, "Yo, bring it back, dude. Chill, chill." And I probably should have stayed a little bit more calm. I probably shouldn't have gone off the handle too much. I'm trying to fix that, trying like to stay even keeled. But hopefully I didn't. Hopefully I didn't interrupt to such an extent where it came off as if I was like being like antagonistic. Like I tried to. I tried like I interrupted, but I was trying to do it in a sense of like, nah, hang on, whoa, let's just not get too far away from the topic at hand. Um, yeah, by the end there, I don't really understand what he was saying. It really sounded like he was saying he viewed gender and sex as if they were interchangeable, as if they basically meant as if they meant the same thing. But then he said, "No, they're different." And then I asked him a very clear question: "Is there such thing as an intersex woman?" And he kind of like I don't even really remember what his answer was. I think he just kind of started rambling again. But yeah, I mean, if it's kind of frustrating because if at the beginning, if he just said that I believe a woman is defined as being biologically female, with that this conversation would have been over in like 2 minutes because it would like okay, like if you believe that you can, that's not how that works. Like gender and sex are different things if you ask the, but I kind of wish he had just said that straight up. But then again, I don't even really know if he knows what he was saying. It kind of felt like he was going off of a lot of emotion. Like he just kind of kept saying, he kind of said things that felt right to him, as opposed to sort of what that's sort of ironic that he kind of was talking about like I don't care how you feel, and yet it seemed like all of his views were based off of how he felt at that given second. So like when I asked him, okay, so you believe that a woman is defined by being biologically female, and he said yes. And then I said, okay, so is there such a thing? So in that case, there is no such thing as an intersex woman. And then he said, well, I don't know, maybe. How do I know? So yeah, that's sort of Elijah, I think you were the one who brought up intersex. Thank you for that, because that, yeah, it's like if you believe that a woman is defined as being biologically female, then if someone, then how can a woman, then how can an intersex person be a woman? And then he would go on, it's like, well, it depends on how they are, their appearance. And I'm like, yeah, that by their expression, but that expression doesn't always match up to their biological sex. And he said, well, it usually does. And it's like, we agree that it usually does, but because it doesn't always match up, it's not A equals B, B equals A, like we went over, it's not black and white, it's not math. We perceive someone's sort of like what pronouns we would use based off their gender expression. And then I use the example, well, if you had someone who was androgynous, what would you do in that case? And he goes, well, that's impossible. I would always be able to sort of tell. And it's like, okay, well. But yeah, I think that one, Elijah, thank you. I think that one really sealed the deal. I think that was really the one that sealed the deal when he said, well, being a woman is defined by being biologically female. And then that's actually, I think I'm going to use that in the future, because I think it's a very good way to very succinctly illustrate the issue with that. Okay, so if someone is intersex, can they also be considered a woman? Because if a woman is someone who is biologically female and an intersex person, they are not biologically female, how can they be defined as a woman? And then, okay, so what else would you use to define that person as a woman? And that's when you get into the thick of gender expression, what it actually means, what gender actually is, and what does it mean when someone says they feel like a certain gender, man or woman. That was very frustrating. Sora, yeah, thank you, Sora. I hope I didn't come off as unreasonable at all during that. I really tried to stay calm. It was difficult, but yeah, I think I did kind of lose it, especially at the beginning. Like, I really wanted to keep him on track, and I interrupted him a lot. I should have done that. Should have just kind of let him go. And then I kind of let it go in the middle. I didn't interrupt him too much. Like, I kind of wanted to let him go and just be patient. But then at the end, we were kind of, because we wanted to wrap up, and he just kept going. And I kind of was like, bro, come on, man. Yeah, this was sort of a shit show, unfortunately. I sincerely kind of wanted to sort of get that, like, because I've heard that a lot, that like when trans people demand that you use their pronoun use. And he was saying, well, if you ask someone something, that's not courtesy. And again, I use the example, well, if I say, hey, would you mind handing me that water bottle on the table there? And someone says, yeah, sure, here you go. I guess in my view, that's common courtesy, is it not? What is the actual definition of courtesy? The showing of politeness in one's attitude and behaviors towards others. Yeah. Politeness, civility, respect. I mean, maybe in his view, if I said, hey, would you mind handing me that water bottle? That you do not view that as that labor you are enacting of taking that water bottle and handing it to that person. That is considered such a massive labor that you are performing that I don't know. But, well, I have to get going, people. Thank you for joining. Yeah, John, thank you. I appreciate it, man. But you were right. Thank you for keeping me on track. I'm glad I saw your message about the interrupting, because if I didn't see that from you, I probably would have kept doing it. And I'm really glad that you pointed out that I control myself. I know, sorry if at the end I kind of went back to that. I was interrupting him a lot. I was trying to keep him on track, but you're right. Thank you, John. Next time, if I'm ever having a conversation, hopefully if you're there and I start like pulling some shit like that, please like give me a kick in the ass to sort of like bring me back. But thank you all for joining, and I will talk to y'all next time.